What's this? I paid for the service and it does all these really cool things. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, what is it I do now? Oh, wow, it's giving me like live updates about how many filler words I'm using, like
Oh
and
wow.
so and I don't know what else I'm saying. It's gonna calculate that for me. Awesome. Okay, that's I know I do that a lot. When I worked at the call center, I was taking phone calls and they were recording our phone calls and then we would review our own voice down to
Oh.
like and then they would like dock points if you said or so or like it was kind of like a good training process, but then my brain kind of reverts back to my old habit. I still do it. I still say
Yeah.
I still say so. And it's not like I'm nervous. It's just like I'm relaxed and it's just coming out of my
Mm-hmm.
mouth now.
Mm-hmm.
I was at work, I had to be like, no, so, no, no, like this. Like that's what they were
That'd be
training
hard
me.
to
It
get
was
rid of. Yeah.
Germany. Like I was working in Germany or something. Like they were so strict about how we spoke.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this is just like a brief intro to myself, give you some context, also an introduction to yourself. You're going to be working on the project for enhancing women's workplace protections, which
Yeah.
is something I didn't have at Sheridan College, and it's the result of why we're here today,
Mm-hmm.
which is good for you, lucky for you, not so lucky for me. um, I just finished having my scrum with the other team.
Mm-hmm.
Before I broke for lunch, I was eating my lunch on the call actually, and some snacks and drinking coffee and letting them do most of the talking
Yeah.
because I think it's better for them to get that experience of how to lead a team
Yeah.
meeting, how to lead a scrum. So they all took turns, and occasionally I chimed in to answer questions. So I'm hoping we can do the same for this team as well.
Okay.
Lakshmi, let me check how to say her name. She offered to lead this team. She's in Ottawa.
Sounds
Haven't
good.
met with her yet one on one. Let me
Is
just check who it
the
was
is
again.
the scrum just like coming together like a weekly meeting, like to like catch up and like get on everyone's base?
So weekly scrum meetings are just kind of like that. Yeah. We
Yeah.
ask three
Okay.
questions. What did you complete? What do you plan to complete next? And did you experience any roadblocks or obstacles? And it's something we can all use together as a team to troubleshoot where you're stuck. Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
stuck somewhere in your research or stuck somewhere with like communication with someone, like they're not
Mm-hmm.
talking to you, or they're giving you some problems, maybe they're acting bitchy or like just being a complete cunt,
Yeah.
um, then we can openly discuss that with the team in front of everyone. I mean,
That sounds
I'm
good.
fine for that. I've done it before, and it's usually not an issue. It's only an issue if someone is really sensitive or is like a bit of a wuss, which I don't accept wusses on my team at all.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, someone's calling me on Facebook. But if you are a wuss, I have compassion for you, and like I've made a I made two girls cry
Oh,
in my working experience, and we made up after it. And they confessed to me they have like anxiety issues and
yeah,
they're
yeah.
working on it. And I was like, it's fine. But like what I said was true. And they're like, yeah, everything you said was true. So I made them cry, but it was crying because I said the truth. And it was a
Mm-hmm.
tough pill for them to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it in front of other people because they were being manipulative towards me.
Mm-hmm.
And I want everyone to see that manipulation. So it was
Mm-hmm.
open and observant for everyone to view. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone else saw the same thing I was seeing, so I knew I wasn't crazy, and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
person was trying to do some weird, fucking shady games with me, which I don't play. And they realized that immediately because I put them in their place. I didn't even give
Mm-hmm.
it a second. I corrected it right in the moment, and it came out very stern and very like direct, which is the best way to deliver that type of medicine
Mm-hmm.
in the situation. Because if you let them keep going, they think that you're a weak link and that you can be pushed over
Mm-hmm.
or moved around in an easy position, which is not correct at all. Like they need to know that you're not here to be fucked with
Yeah.
and you notice what they're doing. And that's part of the protection for women because a lot of women are told to be silent.
Yeah, a
You're not
hundred
allowed to
percent.
express your opinion. You need to be a people pleaser, which I'm never grown up that way. Like I'm a rebel kind of child, a wild child. I'm a middle child. out of 3 siblings. The other siblings have schizophrenia, and I
Mm.
help them through their mental health journey. And my mother also has schizophrenia. She's partially blind, but it's been a lot. But
Yeah,
this is what
definitely.
helped me step into my space and not let people push over me. I found I really connected with people in Australia because that's their culture. They're very direct.
Oh,
Like they
yeah.
don't give a fuck who you are or where you're from. Like I was a
Mhm.
tourist. I was there by myself. I
Mhm.
remember going and walking over to take some kind of public transit. I think it was a bus. And the
Mhm.
bus station was so complicated. There was so many different floors. So I went to the first like level on the ground level and I asked someone there, and he's like, just take the elevator on your right and go straight down. And I was like, okay, but what about after that? He's like, don't fucking give me any more questions. I gave you directions. Like when you get down there, there'll be another person there. You ask them for the next step.
Mm.
So I did that, and I was like so calm because he was so confident in what he said, and he was absolutely sure and secure that there was another worker at that position, and he was. So I took
Mhm.
the elevator down. He was there. I asked him, "What's the next step?" And it was like that kind of culture in Australia. Like,
Mhm.
just don't overthink. Just do what I say. Go take that elevator, and I promise you that person will be there. And they were there. So it
Mhm.
was like kind of relaxing to be there in that environment because there was no bullshit. They didn't let
Yeah,
you
yeah.
overthink anything, and they were very direct with what they were asking.
Yeah.
So I took that elevator. The guy told me what to do next. There was another guy in another position to tell you what the next step is after that one. Got on this was in Bondi, Sydney. Like it was in the beach area and like it was really far. I think it was like a 2-hour bus ride. And I'm there by myself. I have like a working cell phone because I bought a SIM card. And like this is my first time traveling alone on the other side of the world. Like this was like a huge like groundbreaking moment for me to do that. And it was only by accident that I ended up on this trip because my brother Andrew had a wedding to attend.
Mhm.
He was working at Meta at the time, and his coworker was Japanese. He connected me with his coworker. His visa, my brother's visa got canceled, so he couldn't travel last minute. So he said
Oh.
he didn't give me any like communication about that. Last minute I found out. I was like, oh
Yeah.
fuck! So I have to go by myself to all the way to Australia to your friend's wedding that I don't even know. His friend's name was Joseph Wang. And I got to Australia, but didn't end up going to the wedding. Instead, I just
Oh.
used that time to myself. I traveled
Yeah, yeah.
all
Yeah, it
over. I
makes
did a
sense. You
shark
don't know
dive.
them.
Yeah, I don't know them, and like, but he still kept in communication with me in case like something bad happened and I needed to reach out to someone, which was fine. But I
Yeah.
never had to use his like connection because I made friends while I was there, and
Yeah.
like everything kind of flowed in a natural sense. I did
Mhm.
really dangerous things down there, like I went for a live shark dive in a
Oh,
tank.
wow. Isn't the you have the metal cage, right? When you're there?
No, there
Oh,
was
never
no
mind.
metal cage. It was open in a fish tank,
Mhm.
and we were swimming with them with scuba diver instructors that deal and handle the
Oh,
sharks
yeah.
on a daily
Okay.
basis. They're like nurse sharks, so they're
Oh, yeah, yeah.
calmer and they're not aggressive. But when I was diving that day, it was with, like a few other people, and one of the sharks opened its mouth, and the other people I was diving with that were like also tourists are like experts in shark um, research.
Mhm.
Like this was their life dream to do it, and I just did it on a whim. I was like, "Oh, this sounds interesting," because my brother Andrew does crazy stuff like this too, and he takes me with him on vacation. Like we went um, kayaking with orca whales in
Oh,
San Juan Islands. And that was scary for me, but he kind of broke that ice for
yeah.
me, and like we did it together. Even though I was shitting my pants the whole time, because the orca whales can tip you over if they feel like you're
Oh,
a toy too. Like
yeah.
they have this sense in their head like who they can like boss around and like
Yeah, that makes sense.
play with. They didn't do that, but I didn't see any orca whales that day. But that's how kind of I got my appetite for this type of adventure, like through my brother Andrew, who's schizophrenic.
Mhm.
So I went for the shark dive, and one of the sharks opens its mouth while we were diving, and they recorded the whole experience on video. I didn't purchase it. I didn't have money for it. But this like IT software guy that was kind of creepy was stalking me after and he wanted to give me the video, but he said like you have to go on a date with me. Like we're gonna go for dinner if I give you this video because I
Oh, what
just
the
paid
heck?
400 US dollars for it. I was like, "I don't know you. I don't wanna go to dinner with you, and you're creepy as fuck." And
Yeah.
he's like, "Okay, well, let me just send you your photos because I have access to
Mhm.
everyone's photos. I'll send it to you for free." So I gave him my email, and then he sent me the photos, but he kept following me all the way to my hostel until, like, we got to one point of the street, and I was like, "You need to leave. Like, you
Yeah,
gave me the
yeah,
photos. I'm really grateful, but I don't owe you anything else."
yeah,
And, like, he at first, he didn't understand entirely, but then he understood because I made it very clear to him, like, "If you continue any more steps towards me, like, I'm gonna call the cops on you." This
yeah,
was in Australia. He was not a tourist, I'm a tourist, and I still knew, like, "You're not allowed to do that here in this country and, like, anywhere." So he
yeah,
left me alone. He gave me the photos, and we, like, pieced out. But that was, like, an experience for me to learn how to stand up for myself, even to men that don't understand rejection.
yeah.
But he was like a nerdy, kinda like soft character, like, I wouldn't think that he would be that way and, like, so persistent, but he still acted that way towards me. But I felt strong enough in that moment because I was there by myself. There was nothing else I could do except, like, tell him to go fuck off. So,
Yeah.
I did that, and then, I got the photos for free.
At least you got something out of it.
He offered it to me, I couldn't say no, but, like, that doesn't mean anything. Like, I can take
Mhm.
the photos, I don't owe you a date, I don't owe you dinner, I don't owe you anything, like, whatever. So, I think I still have his Gmail somewhere. Maybe it got deleted, it was, like, years ago, but I would never
Mhm.
talk to him again. Like, that
Yeah,
that was very
yeah.
clear to me, he didn't understand what no meant. I had to be very firm, in
Mhm.
that moment. So, I'm telling you all this just to kinda give you some context of who I am as a person.
Mhm.
Um, I have, like, a soft side and a warm side, but I also have, like, a side where, like, I know what no means, and I want you
100%,
to
yeah.
learn that too, and, like, if you have an issue with me, you tell me to my face. I am not, like, a pussy or a wussy, like, I will take the abuse.
Mhm.
And this is, like, training for you in the workplace. If someone does this to you, I'm a safe person. You're
Mhm.
not getting fired. Nothing's gonna happen to you, you're not gonna become homeless. So you're allowed to talk smack to me to my face. And
Mhm.
this is, like, part of enforcing workplace protections for women because I didn't have that safety at Sheridan
Mhm.
College. Even though I was part of the union, I made some friends there that were, like, had some power and influence over others, but I still got fired because this black man thought he had more authority over my body and my romantic, and, like, what is it? Over my romantic, options or something? He's
Mhm.
married, he should have never crossed that line with me. I'm not into married men, I would never touch a married
Yeah.
man. And he told me he was married, so I don't know why he kept explicitly, like, trying to cross the lines with me and, like, sexually harass me in the workplace, and then I end up getting fired because he couldn't take the
Oh,
rejection. He also had an
yeah.
erection next to me in a public space with, like, Karen Connolly on my right, and he was on my left, and he
That's
was, like, making
terrible.
sexual comments over a Boston cream donut, which I got from the communal team meeting space, and I brought over to my desk to eat, and he was like, "Oh, you like Boston cream donuts, eh? Like, sexually." And then it was, like, one comment, then another comment, and then another comment, and he
Yeah.
denied everything. The whole thing was, videotaped on YouTube, live stream, with a password, and that's saved permanently on the YouTube platform. And I had it investigated, and I don't think they had access to the video surveillance footage, but I had it saved, and I gave it to the OPSAU union, which I went to their conference, and this is where I got the water bottle. So they said they're going to keep it safe with them because they don't want to risk anyone else in case this man is, like, really fucking psychotic, which he
Mhm.
already shows that he is. And how do you handle someone like that in the workplace that is psychotic and, like, won't leave you alone and then
Mhm.
fires you and threatens your livelihood?
Yeah. Well, that's like that sounds like a nightmare.
It is
And
a
for it to go
nightmare.
through. Yeah.
So I'm using my life insurance money right now. That's how I'm surviving. I'm not getting paid for this project. I'm just
Mhm.
here as a volunteer, but they do offer me, like, a $350 gift card at the end if I win. They do, like, a raffle or something. But you are getting paid. You're getting paid $1,400, and you do, like, your hours of work. You submit your work to me, and then I submit it to Ripen, and they get you paid. So this is me trying to help you protect yourself and your
For
best
sure.
interests, and it's a safe environment. You can Say whatever you need. You have freedom of speech. I don't have any mental illnesses. I've also been observed and medically cleared. So we're both on the same page of like
Yep.
making sure you're good when you enter the workplace. And if anyone ever tries to step on your toes, this experience is going to help you simulate that experience. And then you'll be able to stand up for yourself and tell me to fuck off or tell someone else to fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
So I will create a document, a database for the research. So you
Mm-hmm.
can research the laws in Ontario and real life situations where this has occurred and what were the consequences, and if it ever has gone to Superior Court to that extent. I did get most of my fundraising goal for the Superior Court retainer.
Mm-hmm.
To go to Superior Court costs you $10,000. So
Oh wow.
I just got a really big contribution. So I'm $1,150 away from $10,000. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
almost at that point to get the full retainer for Superior Court. But I still have arbitration meetings with the union and the
Mm-hmm.
college, which is set for May 12th. We're going
Mm-hmm.
to have a final meeting. And if that doesn't work out, then I'm going to take them to Superior Court, which I don't want to do. I'm not looking forward to that. I've never reported sexual harassment in my life, even though it has happened to me before many times. But this time
Mm-hmm.
was just like it crossed the threshold for myself and for like women in general. Like this man shouldn't have felt so egotistical that he could do that to me and not
Yeah.
get away with it. Like I don't think that's fair for
Yeah.
anyone.
100%. Yeah.
Even for his wife. Like his wife probably doesn't even know that he's behaving this way when he goes to work. So that's me. And I didn't have a chance to look at everyone's resumes. It was first come, first serve,
Mm-hmm.
but I did look through some of them, but mainly used intuition to pick everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really too focused on your resumes or like your credentials. I just like having a phone call conversation to kind of figure out who we are and what our strengths are and where we fit
Sure.
in this project.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to tell me a little bit about yourself, I'll
Yeah.
pull up your resume at the same point.
Okay. Sounds good. So I'm in Alberta. So I go to McLean
Alberta, yeah,
University. Yeah, I'm doing a major in sociology and I'm double minoring in gender studies and philosophy.
perfect.
I work part-time. I just work at H&M. It's a very relaxed job, so I appreciate having that sort of flexibility, especially when it comes to my school. But before, I used to work in this student housing building called Horizon Residence, and I was the RA there. But my manager gave me a lot of responsibilities that kind of made me feel like she was treating me as the assistant manager for a while. Um, and then eventually, when I had to quit, she actually tried to evict me, which was not a great experience. I had to lawyer up, and then I did actually end up I didn't get evicted because that wasn't the official process, but I did have to leave voluntarily, even though my lease was up for in 2026, and that was back in 2024. So yeah, like the workplace, everything you talked about, I'm very much related to. You don't really expect it. You think you have all these protections, but then something happens, and you're like, oh no, you're kind of in this for yourself. But I'm very happy to be out of there. I'm living somewhere much better, and yeah, I have a much easier job. I was getting paid like 16, and I was the on call, so that means anything that happened during the night, because I also lived there, was my responsibility. So I played security guard, I did credit card payments. There was a flood, so I also had to deal with insurance, and then the parents, um, people didn't have rentals insurance, which really was bad, especially for international students who might have needed to go back home. And yeah, it was a very big learning experience. I learned a lot from it. It was my first big job. I was also 18 at the time, so very eye-opening. But yeah, I'm just excited to just finally have like experience in what I actually want to study, because I do eventually either want to go into research or go into government. So these places is very, I feel like I don't have as much experience as I would like in those environments, especially in relation to what I actually want to do in the future. So yeah, I'm really I really like what this project is about, which is like workplace protections, protection of women, gender equality, that kind of thing. It's very much up my alley, and what I'm currently doing right now. Yeah.
Wow. So I'm sorry that happened, number one.
Mhm.
Um, I have questions, lots of
Mhm.
questions.
Yeah.
Um, so you actually did go legally down the
I
legal route, and it
I had to give up because my lawyer's advice was literally that I would not win. So the argument they made against me was the fact that I was in that I had a rental discount because I did work there, and she argued that I can't both have this discount, keep my lease, and also not work there because the only reason she gave me that was she told me the only reason she gave me that was on the condition that I continued to work for her all 4 years, all throughout my university. But the number one thing she told me when I first started working in leasing was that write everything down on paper. Nothing matters. Someone could promise you the world. If it's not down on paper, it's worth nothing. And we use um, we just use drafts for all the leases. So it's very like fill in the blank. This is your rent. This is your name. Blah blah blah. Sign this, and it's legally binding. For my lease, she did the exact same thing. So I had the exact same thing as any other student that chose to live there because I was a student first, and then I got the job because there was just an opening in the office there. So I had a really long lease. I had a lease for until 2026 on a fixed rate, and there was no stipulations. There's nothing else I signed. It was just a renewal contract in which the only thing that was changed was the ending year. So I knew that she had no basis against me. But when I met up with a lawyer, because I did my school has a student union, and the union had lawyers, and then I could use up a certain amount, and my insurance would cover it. And the lawyer basically told me like, hey, even though all this is written down, it is a longer lease. It hasn't technically gone into effect yet, so they could try and void it as a whole. But either way, your manager does not seem like someone you want to have a long legal battle with. And at this point, I was in my final season as she's trying to kick me out. So my number one thing was just, okay, I do not have the time to look for another place right now. It is like in the middle of all, while I also still had to work for her at the same time. So in theory, I would have to do my 2 weeks while fighting her with my lawyer. And I was just like, I can't do this. This isn't worth it. I managed to get my lease extended up until August 27th, and she tried to kick me out in May. So give myself a little bit of time. But yeah, I had to get rid of a 2 year lease that was 850 for a two bed, which she willingly gave me, willingly signed. And the reason why she even did that was because she thought that she would have quit before then, and she wanted to give an FU to her boss, who she hated because her boss was raising everyone else's rents, but because she represented the whole building, she got a lot of flack from students and parents and all that stuff. And she's like, "Oh, Mary, I can try and protect you when I'm gone." But surprise, surprise, even now she's still there. So she did not enjoy the fact that it kind of her maliciousness to her boss came back up on her as a person. So yeah, yeah, I did like, yeah, I did a lot of things. Got paid pretty little. I did a lot of overtime that I suspect was unpaid because she paid us through $50 gift cards sometimes, for like fees or like after hours. So for example, if you help someone for X amount of hour and they did a lockout, they pay them $50 for the lockout fee, and I get that $50 directly. So there's a little bit of weird things when it came to tax because technically I wasn't getting taxed on that, even though it was a solid form of payment. It didn't include me getting up. It didn't include me being on call all the time, which is, like me not being able to, if I was out and about, I always kept my ringer on. I could be at a bar. I could just be having a fun time with my friends, get a call and be like, okay, guys, sorry. I'm not getting paid for that, just the gift card. I was 18 at the time. So I'm like, oh, this is my first big girl job. So I was just like, oh yeah, this is just what you do. But yeah, I did that for a year and a half. while doing all my schooling. But yeah, I'm just really happy not to be there anymore. Um, I definitely learned a lot. I learned a lot about housing. I moved out for university, so I've had to bounce a couple apartments, and I feel like I've gotten a little bit of a footing in the rental market and knowing when to find a place, lease takeovers, knowing how to read contracts, how payments work online, your credit score, how to take care of yourself is, something people don't really think about when they move out, but being able to like think about your bills and understand when to pay them and using different portals and keeping your place tidy and yeah, just a lot of learning before that. I it was yeah, I stopped working there around July because she still made me do my last 2 weeks learning teaching someone my job. So yeah.
That's sick. That's
Yeah.
actually sick. I feel ill. I feel really ill. Um, wow. I'm so sorry.
Mhm.
I'm very sorry. That's just like disgusting. That's awful. Oh, I have another meeting coming up. It's notifying me. Um, yeah, that's fucking awful.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
like you live.
you're somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm somewhere else, much happier, doing better in school. I'm able to find different opportunities. Kind of sucks I was rejected for a scholarship that I thought was like I was a shoe-in for. And it turns out that my it had a minimum number of credits, and I remember I dropped a class in order to deal with her because I could not balance it both, and it disqualified me from this one scholarship I really wanted. I got like the email 2 weeks ago, and it was just like a little bit of like, fuck, like, it's still like I can still feel the effects. But yeah. Yeah.
I know with like Sheridan College, like through the union, they have like this one appendix they add to people's contracts where it
Mm-hmm.
says like you're not allowed to do any more work than what is listed on your duties and responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And after you hit like the maximum of hours that you're supposed to place into the work, you're supposed to just like hands off, like don't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But some people at the college in Sheridan, they don't have that appendix.
Mm-hmm.
So their bosses are allowed to do exactly that behavior that
Yeah.
you just mentioned. So I think it's like lack of education. Like what would you say? Why did you get like you wouldn't know. You're 18
Mm-hmm.
years old. But like moving forward, if like a pat a next version of you enters the same situation, what would you have done differently?
Um, Honestly, there wasn't too much to be done in terms of doing anything differently. The biggest thing for me was the fact that my manager and the owners had a big team of lawyers and they had time. So even though I had a lease agreement that was signed by both parties that was drafted up by her, that was created over a year ago. Um, if she really wanted to tie it to my employment, all it would have taken would have been like two sentences. One little tidbit. It was her decision to be malicious towards her boss because she really thought she was going to quit. Like during I remember during times I would come into the office, she would just be on Indeed. One time she was getting trying to get her realtor license. Like she hated working. She still hates working there. Um, but I think at the end of the day, there's only so much that work protections can do when you're especially financially constrained. But I think that I think also mine was a pretty unique situation because even though the building had we had like 315 residents. It's a pretty sizable building. It's a private student residence, so only university students can enter there. It was only me, the maintenance man, and her. That was it, who was running the entire place. So there was something clogged. I'm the one that, oh, there's a maintenance request. Okay, send out the maintenance or call this number. Um, there's one time, oh, we didn't have multiple break-ins. Instead of hiring a security guard, oh, Mary, can you just do walkthroughs after your shift? I'll pay you the extra hour and that. And I remember one time I forgot to do a walkthrough. I had to do a perimeter, and because of the stairwells, I had to do it a certain way, or else I'd miss a stairwell. So I'd have to actually end up doing 2 or 3 laps to hit everything. And I missed doing the outside. And the day after, I remember they got a break in. And my manager asking me, oh, Mary, I saw on the cameras you never went there. Like, like, well, you should have done your due diligence. And I'm being like, oh, I'm so sorry, because the way my responsibilities were presented in the beginning was that the resident advisor was just to answer emails, and because it was a student resident, to plan parties, plan little St. Patrick's Day, put out bowl of candy, that kind of thing. And I feel like she knew I was a big people pleaser, and this was the first time I've ever done. Slowly more responsibilities were added. When I was doing At the very end, when I started doing credit card payments and I started collecting all this like personal information such as social security numbers, places of residence, people's former names when they've already changed it. Um, it's just like I didn't get any formal training on it. I was just taught how to use the software and not the actual ethical considerations, data leaks, privacy, what it's like to actually have this much information. Um, Thankfully, I already knew some of it just from school, but I was in a pretty unique work environment because of the way the building is run privately. It was a very badly run building. It was it only became a residence around 10 years ago. What happened was there's like 8 owners that decided to buy it up because the past resident manager or past owners took everyone's security deposits and ran away and left the country. And it left the bank. It gave it to the bank, and it was on like foreclosure or something. So it was at a really cheap price. And they were like, "Oh, guys, we can make so much money on it." And then COVID happened and all this stuff, and they're like, "Oh, we're making zero money on the building." So the way they saved was through, of course, employees. So before I got there, there was assistant manager. There were like 3 RAs. There's a whole team for maintenance, that kind of thing. And sometimes even in this building now, I'll put in a maintenance request and I'll be surprised when it's done day of, or the fact that the maintenance people actually look like they know what they're doing. Or one time I asked to borrow a hammer, and the maintenance room in the back was all organized with all the little parts versus just a broom closet that's labeled pipes or something like that, because that's what I had. So yeah, it was just a very badly run building. I did learn a lot, which I do appreciate, but I definitely could have learned it through other means. So, yeah.
That's fucking bullshit.
Yeah,
Like, that's just
and
bullshit. Like, I don't.
yeah, and even then I was in a privileged position to understand what my rights were as an individual, to know that, oh, okay, technically I'm not supposed to be doing this or that, or especially at the end when she was threatening me with eviction, which stays on your record, your credit, your history. So that would have really damaged the like next 7 years or however long it's on me if I never fought it. I took it up to the landlord tenant board. There's a long review. You have to prove that you've tried to resolve it one on one. So that was also pretty nerve wracking, to go up to your boss and be like, hey, what you're doing isn't right. And then go back the next day to do everything else she wants you to do because you're there for another 2 weeks. Not to mention, I will continue to live there the next 3 months while I was just waiting out the rest of my lease. Um, but yeah, and then that's coming from someone who has an understanding of um, I don't know, the housing market, your rights. We get a lot of international students because it is one of the only places basically in Edmonton where you're able to access things like, it's very easy to apply online, and it's very easy to use international banks because we designed it that way, because we know we have a lot of international students. But because of that, I think that Kirsten was my boss's name. Kirsten knew that the students who came here were a little more vulnerable. So when the rental hikes kept going, there was this 1 month where I think it went up $100 in 2 weeks for this one type of room. International students don't know, if they don't compare the prices or know where to look, And a lot of prices are not listed on the, you have to contact them by phone or email or give them your own information. But they don't know they're getting scammed. My room, which I shared with a roommate, the whole two bed was under 500 square feet. And at its peak, it cost 1,000 a month per person for an interior. And an interior looks into our courtyard because there's a courtyard in the middle and two places. So it looks into the courtyard. So paying $1,000 for a combined space of less than 500 square feet with a window that's not real. And in national students, we'll see that and be like, oh, okay, I'm there for X amount of months, or, and it was one of the only places you could stay there for like a 2 month period for these very, very short leases. So for a lot of international students, it was the only option if you want a place to stay before you come to Canada. Because a lot of places here, Facebook Marketplace, lease takeovers, the smaller places, they're much cheaper, but it's impossible to do if you're living in India, if you're from Denmark, if you're in Finland. Um, so yeah, a lot of yeah, and yeah, and she knew that. I also think that um, she was very in over her head. So when I came there and she saw like a mini version of her, which is what she also used to call me, that she was like, "Oh, finally, I can lessen the burden that has been put on me because it was only her, me, and the maintenance man running the place, and she had to, of course, balance the books. She was the accountant, she was the bookkeeper. She, like any break-in, she had to find a way to find the money for it, like that kind of thing. So when she saw me, it was like finally like, oh, something to lessen the load instead of hiring a more qualified individual."
Jesus Christ. Oh my god. My oldest brother Walter is staying at Centennial College. Like
Mm-hmm,
he's paying rent there. His rent's like $1,200, he was saying, but his schooling is paid for through his disability payments
mm-hmm,
because he has like schizophrenia and he has suicidal depression. And there's an RA there too, and I met her and she's from the Caribbean. She's so happy and like having a good time, and like the building is brand new, it's just like renovated, and she was wearing like reindeer antlers for Christmas on her head, and she was showing us the different things and like the tour of the building. She seemed like she was really happy, but then when I asked her what her position was, she says, "Oh, I'm an RA," and like her voice kind of dropped, and now I get it. Like maybe
yeah, I
there's
did.
something going on there.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing. So while I'm doing credit card payments, insurances, all that stuff, I'm also planning the events, which is what I was happy about, of course, because that's the reason why I wanted the job. Is I really liked engaging with people. I love celebrating little holidays and creating these, and I love like having people together, creating these little parties, talking to people about the experience. Oh, like that's what I really wanted to do, and then of course the responsibility is getting tacked on one by one by one. My experience compared to other RAs I've spoken to, because even though I go to MacEwan, mine was a private residence, which is I think still the only one in Edmonton. Every all the other student residents are attached to schools, so they have their own governing body, and of course, if for example, if rent doesn't make up, they can, they have something to keep them afloat. Versus a private place, I'd be like, oh, we're only dependent on taking these students and filling up the building as much as possible. But when I spoke to the RAs at MacEwan, they even though they also worked on events, they did not do the insurances. MacEwan had their own thing. They're not going to make 18-year-olds do accounting or looking up social security and like deciding who gets to stay and who gets to go. So thankfully they didn't get yeah, so thankfully they didn't have that responsibility. However, a lot of the mental health and whatever problems are in residence is theirs. So, for example, with MacEwan, from what I've heard from my friends, the big thing is overdoses and alcohol poisoning, as well as sexual assault that happens within the residence that they're having to deal with. And instead of having, a therapist, a leader, it's their issue because they're supposed to be advising these residents. So even though their position would be like, oh, making sure our place is feel comfortable and safe, it's like, oh, my roommate comes home every Saturday and she is blackout. I can't talk to her. Maybe we need to take her to the hospital. Maybe we need to do a drug addiction. Or, oh, this person's boyfriend keeps coming over and I know they're fighting and I know she's getting hurt. Can you help us with this while being in residence? For me, I had this one experience where this lady was getting domestically abused by her boyfriend, and I wasn't there at the time, but she did come back. It was, I think, she was trying to access our cameras based on an incident that happened 2 years ago. However, we don't keep that kind of database. It has to. We don't have that much space to be keeping camera footage from X amount of years ago. So she's very disappointed. And I felt very bad because she was in a court case against her ex-boyfriend who was abusing her, and he locked her in her room for I think a week. I think it was something like that. Like he inverted the lock from the inside out. And then apparently he had once dragged her down the hall from the bedroom to the outside because I can't even remember why. And she was trying to go up in court against him, and that was the only thing she could think of in terms of evidence, other than text messages, was the video of her getting dragged. And I remember she came to visit us in the office, and we had to be like, I'm so sorry. Like our system only goes back maybe a year and a half. And even then the cameras don't point to every single door. They point to the general hallway. So even if we were to find it, we're not sure if we can catch the faces, the exact room number, or if the quality is corrupted or that kind of thing. But yeah, it was really sad.
That is fucking crazy. Oh my God, what's going on in Edmonton? Like that's not normal. Like I've heard of stories, but like nothing like this. And then they
Hmm.
expect you to handle it as an RA. Like you don't have qualifications. You're not a
Oh, I
psychiatrist. You're not a
yeah,
social
yeah,
worker. Like that's just accounting, like social insurance. Not like what?
yeah. I
They want
sometimes I
you to
got
handle all that.
yeah. They sometimes I got some calls where like, oh, do you need this? And I'm like, oh, technically yes. However, as long as you haven't been recently married, your last name hasn't changed, because the point of the number is just to access their credit score so we can look it up on our system. But the social security number is the fastest way, instead of going through, oh, confirm your residence, confirm your name, confirm this, because that's, you can use both. But my manager liked me to use the number because it was just fast. And sometimes I got some calls and I'm like, oh, I can definitely do it the other way. But you would have to ask. You would have to advocate for yourself and your privacy.
Like that's a really scary thing to provide in general. Like your social
Mm-hmm.
insurance number is like your livelihood, everything. You only get one when you're born. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you give that away, like willingly, freely, and then something happens, like it could be really bad for you. Like
Mm-hmm.
I do have cybersecurity specialists like working on another project for us. So hopefully their research will help protect us all in terms of cybersecurity, but like identity fraud maybe should be another one of my projects for Ripen students. How do you prevent someone from stealing your identity through data leaks or like just giving it to
Mm-hmm.
a teenager?
Yeah, yeah. I think sometimes they were surprised when, because my manager, she also worked from home a lot. So I sometimes I went into the office and she wasn't even there. I'm the only one in the office. And these big families come in expecting my manager, and they see me behind there, 2 years younger. Oh, hi, are you guys here for the move in? Oh, yeah, I'll just have you fill out this paperwork. Yeah, hi, I'll be like this. And in if you don't specifically ask for the manager, some people's only point of contact was just me in that entire building. You have rental troubles here, let me do this. You have this trouble, your toilet's not working. Okay, let me go check. I also did some maintenance, which I hated. There was this one, like for example, the biggest one was just hair down the drain, and the cleaner that we used smelled like death, and that was the thing I hated the most. But they were trying to save money because they're like, oh, Mary, I'll teach you how to do it. Don't call the plumber, because the plumber, of course, is a minimum of X amount of money, and I got paid hourly, barely 16. Um, but
Are
yeah,
you okay?
I got a
That
lot
sounds
of
horrible.
skills. I got a lot of skills. I think that's what I emphasize. It wasn't bad the entire time. It was the slow progression.
Please don't.
Okay, that sounds
It
so bad.
sounds awful. Don't even try. Don't push the positive card here. There's nothing positive what you just said.
It was just the slow
It's so
progression.
good, and then it was like,
But yeah.
oh my god,
Oh,
oh my
but
god, I'm crying.
for your other identity fraud aspect, I something I like doing research in is AI,
Uh-huh.
and it's interesting how many how easy identity fraud could be if you um, like I don't know how to describe it. But for example, one of the things that my bank BMO wanted me to do was do voice confirmation, where they
Mm,
take a clip of your voice and they match it up to make sure if you're calling them, it's you. But it is so easy to replicate anyone's voice with any
it
free
is.
AI software online now. Same
Yeah,
thing with
that's
faces
what
in
my
terms of deepfakes.
my workers
Yeah.
were doing. Yeah, my that's what I was working on Canada's first AI project. That's what I was doing when I got fired and the guy had an erection next to me. He
Mm-hmm.
came in 3 months after I already arrived, so I was like senior to him. And we were working on projects like that where we were using fake voices and like using different
Mm-hmm.
AI tools for like the movies, like special effects,
Oh.
different AI software, medical, men, mental health care, video games, like everything. All the industries we were working on like AI projects, but this was
Mm-hmm.
like the biggest one. It was a $2 million budget.
Oh
Um,
wow.
it was a grant provided by the government. They chose me to lead it based on empathy, which I have a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. Unfortunately. Um, so, yeah, that just sounds fucking awful. Like all that stuff that happened to you as an RA. I feel bad for the girl that I met at Centennial College because now I feel her pain. Like I noticed everything dropped. Like she was so excited and like happy to see us, and then I asked her what her role was, and this all like comes together now, where
Mm-hmm.
that kind of like that's abuse.
Yeah,
That's like
yeah, it
working in
definitely.
China kind of abuse.
Yeah, it
Oh my
just
God.
there was no such thing as work-life balance. I was on all the time. If my phone was on, even now, I'm a pretty I'm a pretty deep sleeper. But the moment I can't have my phone on my bed because even if it buzzes, it doesn't even ring. If it buzzes, I'll like half wake up, open my eye, and make sure it's not like something super important. Because there have been times, one time I got a call from McEwen residents, and they wanted us to absorb 100 of their students because they also had a flood. And I'm like, what is happening? It is 4 a.m. Who is this? He's like, are you not Kirsten? I'm like, no, 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 I'm not Kirsten. He's like, well, like, why is this the number? I'm like, well, I'm the RA here. He's like, well, can you do, because they're all waiting outside with all their stuff. And they're trying to see if they can walk a block over and I can open up some rooms for them. And I'm like, no, no, that's not going to happen. No. And he's like, okay. And then they just ended up being put up in a hotel. But yeah, yeah, it's really
My
interesting.
goodness. That is like super interesting and like horrible. I the only other thing that I'm like kind of bridging a connection in my own head about e-transfers, I don't know if this makes sense or this is a tangent, it's probably a tangent. But like I remember at the cooperators, like employees were asking for e-transfers
Mm-hmm.
with clients over the phone and they put it in their personal bank account. Like it didn't even go to the cooperators. That's how they were trying to get even in that situation where they were
Wow.
getting like emotionally abused, mentally abused. So the call center had to call like an outside third company to come in and like spy on employees
Yeah.
for this behavior. And then they would track it through some kind of software and see like what people were doing that they weren't supposed to be doing. So in this case, they caught all of those individuals that were taking each, and we do oaths before we start a job in insurance, we have to take like an oath sort of thing. Like we have to say that we're honest, we're transparent, we're not doing anything
Yep.
unethical because insurance has a history of being unethical and like
Yep.
adding small print and like being super like we're the most hated people in like the industry of all industries because no one likes to pay insurance.
Mm-hmm.
It's so expensive in some areas and like you get that anger from people when they're calling because they don't
Yep.
understand why they have the insurance. They never claim it. It's like a piece of promise that they're paying towards that may never need to be used or it's not even like active for them in that day when they're calling and they still have to keep paying for it. So
Yeah.
yeah, some employees were acting very badly and I remember cooperators had to hire outside company to spy on employees And I don't know if that's happening in these RA positions, if like they're making sure these RAs are not being abused by managers, because there should be
Mm-hmm.
spies for managers too. Like if you're going to spy on employees, you should also spy on managers to make sure they're not doing stuff like this, like what happened to you. So that's kind of like my idea for like long-term nonprofit organization. Like we would send
Oh
people
yeah,
out to these
100%. Yeah.
workplaces, like undercover in a clandestine manner, just to observe and like watch what's happening, and be there as a point of contact in case employees are getting some sort of abuse or being mistreated, because I know that was happening to me. And then we can also do like a fun way of like dealing with the bullying and abuse. Like we can have people hired to go to these workplaces, and you can pay them like through the GoFundMe, like a donation, to come over there and cuss out the person that's fucking shitting on you
Yeah.
in front of
Yeah.
everyone. Like if you're not feeling brave enough to do it, we'll have like people that will come out and do it for you one
Mm-hmm.
time, and then like we'll
That
switch
sounds.
so no one knows who anyone is.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting that you mentioned that because that's actually a thing in Japan where it is
Is it?
very, very hard to quit a job. You have to give them like a 3 month notice even. And it's it's a humiliation ritual when you quit because it's like you're leaving us behind. We trusted you, now you're leaving us. Where are you going? There's this one English teacher who had to leave her teaching position, and she was basically for the next 3 months, people like gave her the cold shoulder, and and there's some instances where companies don't accept your quitting. You have to have a valid reason according to them. So in order to get rid of this humiliation, the shame, and the actual I want to quit, I will leave, don't make me stay here sort of thing, they pay companies to do it for them, so they don't have to confront with their boss, because it's like the culture, their working culture there is very tough. um yeah, it's
That's
very tough.
messed up.
It's yeah, there's a lot of things based on seniority. In some cases, you have like your workday may end at 5, but it's basically mandated, like it's an unwritten rule that you go drinking out with your boss basically until 10 p.m. to prove that, oh, like I'm reliable, to build up relations. So you could be from there from like 9 to 10, doing something you don't even want to do. And then there's this sort of belief that you cannot leave until your boss leaves. So even if you've done all your work, you're just there pretending to do work. So you don't look like you're the first one to leave, or the last one to stay. Like sleeping at your desk because you're so tired and you're so overworked, rather than just going home or thinking that maybe something could change.
Wow, I can promise you I'm not gonna do any of those things. Like I'm volunteering. Like this is just me being like casually myself. I'm
Yeah.
not getting paid. So like these meetings are also voluntary. Terry, like if you don't want to see my ugly face, like you don't have to. And we all know when this is ending. So like I'm not coercing anyone to stay. You
Mhm.
can all leave. Like I'm very detached in that sense. Like I'm giving you this time to work on these traumas and different things that have happened to you while also protecting yourself, researching, finding ways to protect yourself and others. And myself, I'll probably use some of those tidbits because I should get something out of this, even though I'm not getting paid. You guys are. So I should take something.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not a martyr. I'm not a savior. I'm not Jesus. I have to have something.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't want to be
100%.
homeless. Like I bought these snacks with my life insurance money. This was from No Frills. This is from Indigo, and that's from Winners. And Winners donates profits to women experiencing domestic violence. This one also is
Oh.
a portion of proceeds go to breast cancer research. So they have like nice little products that also donate to other donation, like other
Mhm,
places. So not just domestic violence, but breast cancer.
mhm,
Um, yeah. So I'm finding ways to use my life insurance money, hopefully like wisely, where
mhm,
it's like also being donated somewhere, and like I don't have much left, but it's okay. I have a roof over my head. My mother has graciously allowed me to stay in her house. I'm not paying rent right now, though normally I do. My brothers don't pay rent to her ever.
mhm.
Fucked. They're so cheap. Like don't care they have a mental illness. Like, that's fucked. You should also contribute. And,
Yeah,
like, my
yeah, in
mom is
some way.
partially blind. She's schizophrenic, and, like, you're not even helping her financially. When
Mhm.
my one brother's on disability payments, my other one is not. He's too proud to go on disability, but he doesn't help. And they're running an Airbnb in her basement, not giving
Oh,
her the
wow.
profits.
Oh,
Like, that's how fucking stupid they are.
yeah, yeah, Airbnb in her house.
A third of her house is a business, like an Airbnb run by my two schizophrenic brothers. They're not paying her at all for the profits they're making off her house.
Yeah.
And she won't stand up
Oh.
for herself. She keeps
Oh.
feeding them, and they're overweight, they're obese. She keeps giving them more food into their mouths with her, like, little minuscule, like, funding that she's getting from Ontario government for CPP, and they're making fucking $6,000 a month from Airbnb, and they're not giving her a cent.
Oh.
She
Wow,
only
that
makes $16,000 a year on her pension. She's feeding these fucking obese monsters.
oh my god.
I told her to evict them, to get rid of them, and she's too
Mhm.
scared. She's like, "No,
Oh.
I need to be a good mother." I'm like, "You stop being a people pleaser. This is why you're schizophrenic. Like, you should have fucking said no from the beginning."
Oh.
So I have the police on my brother's asses. Like, if they're
Oh,
misbehaving, they
yeah.
mention to me, "Just call us. We'll get rid of them." One of them has to go to a homeless shelter, but he's aggressive and abusive, so he won't fit in there. They actually have a rule.
Oh. Yeah.
Homeless shelters, you're not allowed to be aggressive. That's one of
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
He's
100%.
aggressive. He threw dog shit at my face. I have that on video on my YouTube. I told the police this. They have records of it. I talked to both of their doctors, Dr. Ahmed, Dr. Shakila. Dr. Shakila hates Andrew. She thinks he's Hitler. He abused all her staff at the mental institution, and
Oh.
she never wants to see his ugly face again. So if something happens to him, he's going to prison, most likely.
Yeah.
And while he's staying at Scarborough, but he still comes here and eats my mom's food. He's showering, he's using the water, and he's paying rent over there. I'm like, he says his roommates suck. I'm like, figure it out, bro. Like, you're not even fucking supposed to live here. I told the police
Yeah.
this too. They said if he starts acting up, because he called the cops on me, and he wanted me to go to the mental institution. And the cops came and clearly saw that my brother is fucking nuts. So they said, like, if he does this again, just keep calling us. We are documenting every time he calls. You can take him to small claims court if he
Yeah.
keeps
Yeah.
harassing you about that kind of shit. So they all have to behave themselves, including my mother. Like, if she doesn't
Mhm.
listen to me, I can also send her to the mental institution, or she can get arrested. Because she did
Mhm.
that to me. She called the cops on me. I wrote something sarcastic on Facebook expressing my freedom of speech. I said, "Should I kill myself now or later?" Very sarcastically. She called the cops on me. They came knocking at my door at 3 a.m. The black officer came with a white blonde female officer. They couldn't take me down. The black officer tried. I threw him off of me. I almost fucking killed him. He almost fucking killed me too. He put his knee on my back and restricted my ability
Oh
to
my
breathe. I
god.
almost broke my thumb. I have all this, like, recorded. I have pictures of everything. I could take that cop to the police commissioner and get him fired because it was excessive force. I'm not that big of a person,
Yeah.
and he's black. He should have let the blonde cop arrest me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why the female didn't arrest me, but she froze in that moment. She was traumatized just watching the whole scenario. So
Yeah.
I have a lot going on here, but I'm still open to discuss and mentor you
Yeah.
guys. We'll teach you how to call the cops on people if they're fucking you, like that boss of yours. You should have taken her to the mental institution. There's called a form 42. Your
Mhm.
boss fucking acts up. You send them to the mental institution. You make that connection. You bridge those networking. Go to the mental institution yourself first. Get yourself cleared. Make friends with the doctors there, then send your manager
Yeah.
over and get them formed. Because we're allowed to do that in Canada. Form
Mhm.
42 is for people that are a harm to others or harm to themselves. So in that case, that boss is being a harm to you.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
she was quite an individual.
yeah, I have to run to the next call, but I
For
hope this
sure.
conversation helped me kind of understand your context too. And I'm
For
fucking
sure.
sorry. That's fucking
It's
bullshit.
okay.
If I was there, I would have fucking slapped her. I don't know. I'm like a wild animal. You don't want to mess with me. Even the cops are scared of me now. They saw that I took the black guy down, so they're also laughing about that because he has training, and I
Yeah.
didn't have training. I was sleeping. I was in deep sleep, 3 a.m. I decided to open the door like an idiot. I should have never done that, and I fucking threw
Mm.
him on the floor. So
Yeah, yeah.
I gotta go.
Okay.
It was nice
It was
meeting you,
nice.
and
Yes.
we'll chat again soon. I'll send you an invite for the project